So what happens when a former president's statement flatly contradicts files from his very own Justice Department? Well, today, we're diving deep into the newly released Epstein documents to untangle that exact question.
All right, let's kick things off with this really clear denial from Donald Trump, which he posted back in January 2024. He says, quote, "I was never on Epstein's plane or at his stupid island." He even went on to suggest any stories saying otherwise were the work of AI or his political enemies. The message he's sending is crystal clear. It didn't happen, period.
But, here's where it gets really interesting. That absolute denial? It seems to clash pretty dramatically with information that federal prosecutors, who were part of Trump's own Justice Department, had in their possession for years.
Okay, so let's get right into the heart of this contradiction by looking at what the files actually say about those flights on Epstein's jet.
And this is a big one. The files show that way back in January 2020, so years before that denial we just saw, federal prosecutors had found that Trump had been on Epstein's jet a lot more than anyone previously thought.
And the timing here is absolutely crucial. A prosecutor actually noted that these flights took place, quote, during the period we would expect to charge in a Maxwell case. So that directly ties the time frame of Trump's flights to the horrific crimes that ultimately sent Ghislaine Maxwell to prison for 20 years.
And it's not just about the flights. Trump's name actually pops up over 100 times in these documents. Now, to be clear, not every mention is some kind of smoking gun. A lot are just news clippings. But it proves one thing for sure. The connection between Trump and Epstein was definitely on law enforcement's radar for a very, very long time.
So what was the response from Trump's team to all of this? Well, a spokesperson was pretty direct, saying, "The truth remains. Donald Trump did nothing wrong." They're sticking to the story that he was never contacted by law enforcement about Epstein, and of course that he denies any wrongdoing.
Now, this whole situation, this contradiction, it did not go unnoticed in Washington. In fact, it's kicked off what you might call a rare bipartisan backlash.
And you can see that unusual alliance right here. On one side, you've got Republican Thomas Massie saying the story Trump told wasn't accurate. And on the other, Democrat Ro Khanna talking about an emerging coalition of the right and left to fight for justice. It's not every day you see that.
And this push for answers is coming from the very top. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer put it this way: protecting possible co-conspirators is not the transparency the American people are demanding, a sentiment that's really starting to gain traction in Congress.
So, with all this talk, what are lawmakers actually doing about it? How are they trying to force the Department of Justice to be more transparent?
Well, for starters, the House Oversight Committee is getting subpoenas ready, and they're zeroing in on 10 people who were identified as alleged co-conspirators all the way back in 2019. The mystery is, who are they? Their names are still being kept from the public.
And the pressure is really ramping up. Congress is even drafting a contempt resolution against the Attorney General. They're talking about a 30-day deadline to release the files, huge daily fines of $10,000, and they're even threatening impeachment. They are not messing around.
So with Congress turning up the heat like this, how's the Department of Justice responding? Well, it's turning into a pretty tense standoff.
If you look at what the DOJ is saying publicly versus what's actually happening, you see a real disconnect. They say the delays are to protect victims, but they've already blown past a 30-day legal deadline. They're calling mentions of Trump unfounded and false, but their own prosecutors confirmed he was on the jet, and they claim they're following the law, but lawmakers are pointing to excessive redaction. And then, just when you think things can't get any more complicated, this happens. The DOJ announced that the FBI has found over 1 million more documents. 1 million. That's just a staggering number. And it basically buries any hope of getting quick and easy answers.
So let's just step back from all the politics for a second and think about what this all means for the survivors, the people who are at the very heart of this case.
These brave survivors were absolutely correct that the government was withholding critical information. That's a quote from an attorney for Epstein's victims. For them, this isn't about politics at all. It's about validation. It's proof that what they've been saying all along was true.
And so this is where we're left. We have a fight for transparency that's exposed some major contradictions at the highest levels of power. But with over 1 million new documents now in the mix, the biggest question is the one right here on the screen. What else remains hidden? Let us know what you think down in the comments.